A businessman whose philosophy is anchored on giving back to the society by way of sharing knowledge. An academic who fondly remembers his teachers for instilling the spirit of literature and history into him. A man who is proud of his roots and legacy. B.C. Thakur. Heading one of Bahrain's leading companies in the office products market, the National Trading House, Mr. Thakur, popularly known as Bob, comes with a rich experience of almost 4 decades in running small and medium enterprises. A part-time lecturer in marketing and management with the British University of Bahrain and the Bahrain Institute of Banking and Finance, Bob is also a local counselor at the Strathclyde Business School. He is an alumnus of the University of Strathclyde with an MBA in Management Marketing, Mumbai's KPB Hinduja College of Commerce and the Indian School, Bahrain. As the president of the Thai Hindu merchant community, Bob heads the renovation project of the 200-year-old Hindu temple in the heart of Manama, which is all set for the state-of-the-art revamp in the next 2 years. Bob is also a Rotarian who strives to live the legacy of the International Service Organization and was the past president of the Rotary Club Manama. He is the Vice Chairman of the Commercial Market Committee at the Bahrain Chamber of Commerce and Industry, member of the Japanese Business Friendship Society, and has been the Accelerator Chair of the Entrepreneurs Organization. The father to 2 is an avid reader, a history buff, and is keen on remaining fit. Welcome to BIZ Talk, Success Stories of Business Leaders, hosted by BMC Global Live with B.C. Thakur. Welcome back to one more episode of BIZ Talk, brought to you by BMC Global Live. And yes, we have one more businessman to talk about business and beyond, B.C. Thakur. And yes, he is the managing director of Bahrain's premier office equipment company, the National Trading House. Not just that, and he's an academic, he's an entrepreneur, and a Rotarian. Well, a lot more. Let's hear from Mr. Thakur himself. Good evening, Mr. Thakur. Welcome to BIZ Talk, brought to you by BMC Global Live. And as you must be aware by now, this show brings forward business leaders to speak about business and beyond. So, in fact, when I was getting ready myself to talk to you or have this chat, I was pretty impressed at the different hats that you wear, because we know you either as a businessman, a prominent community member from the Thai community. I think you are the president of the merchants community of that group. And I know you as a Rotarian, but there's much more to you. So this evening, let's get a little more into it. To begin with, how do you place yourself as a businessman in the community?
Well, first of all, thank you, Raji, for having me, and it's really a privilege to be here. And I think what you're doing is some fantastic work, because you're spreading the word of the stories of entrepreneurs, which hopefully will inspire more entrepreneurship. And this can only help the community overall. Well, as a businessman, I'm a second generation businessman. My father was a businessman since the early 50s. And I'm blessed and lucky and privileged enough that I was sort of allowed to be in the family business. My uncle wasn't a businessman who was also in Bahrain, but he worked with the YK Almoy group as a general manager. And if I worked for like 40, 50 years with them, but he always had this entrepreneurship seed in him, and he encouraged other family members, my father, and then of course me. And really, he was an inspiration in the family, along with my father. He was an inspiration, and he built so many other businesses. He built businesses for other businessmen, and I'm proud. I'm proud that I could be associated with somebody who has such a great legacy.
Okay, great. That's a good note to start on. Yes, the Thai community has long roots in the country. And
absolutely. 4 generations, and
a very privileged community.
Very privileged to be in Bahrain. The history, our community has a history, is what we are trying to trace now also, and as part of a very important project we are working on. We originally are from Jaisalmer, and about 400 years in Rajasthan. 400 years ago or something, there was this first migration of our community, where we migrated to Thatta, which is now in Pakistan, which is near Karachi. We are getting into the roots of why we did that, or why the community did that. There must be some reasons: war, famine, could be so many other factors. And then we settled in Thatta, and the proximity to Karachi port, which had the proximity to Bahrain, and Bahrain was a trading center. So there was this trading which started with Bahrain so many years, since 1800s, maybe earlier. And we talk nowadays about fancy terms like globalization. Our community was practicing globalization since 1800s. They would trade in grains and in spices with Bahrain. The pearls, of course, would come into play because Bahrain was a pearling center. Those pearls landed up from Karachi, I guess, in Bombay. And those pearls, we know, Bahraini pearls landed up in France, and there are pictures with Cartier. So this globalization is in a very rudimentary form was being practiced by our community, like other business communities also back then. There's a rich legacy of the Thattai Bhatiyas, and we are privileged to be in Bahrain. And we've been always welcomed here by the ruling family, and we have tremendous respect in this community. And I think if you ask any Thattai Bhatia who's been in Bahrain, he won't call Bahrain like a home, he'll just call it home. And it is because people have grown up there. I was born here, my wife is born here, my brother is born here. So, and the whole community, if you see, majority of them have roots in Bahrain.
Great. That is BC Thakur joining us on BIZ Talk from BMC Global Life. May I take this liberty to call you Bob? Because I think that's how Bahrain knows you, and we've all been calling you Bob.
Much simpler, and you can spell it anyway backwards, so it's easier that way. Yes.
So Bob, you head the merchant community of the Thattais, and one important project which is on the front is the Hindu temple, the Manama, the 200 years. So why not we start the chat on that project?
So once again, the word which you'll hear a lot from me, and probably like sound like a broken record, but it's legacy all the time. And this is a institution now which has been in Bahrain for many years. The merchants community owns this land, and of course the Bhatia community overall has been operating this temple. But we believe it's beyond the temple. It is of course the temple. And the new project which we have, which was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister Modi last year in August during his visit, is that this will be a Thattai Hindu Merchants Community Complex. It will of course house the temple, which will be double the size.
Okay.
It will have an auditorium which will be triple the size of what the current auditorium is, nearly 500 people capacity, fully state of the art. It will have 2 other auditoriums. One of them is a museum, which will trace the history of the Thattai Bhatia community.
Interesting.
And that will be part of this complex. Along with the museum, we have actually appointed a historian in Bombay, Dr. Mangala, who was head of history in Bhavans College in Bombay. She's retired now, and she's doing this all gratis for us because she's so fascinated by our community's history. And she's researching our history from Bombay, Jaisalmer, We appointed somebody else in Karachi
Okay.
who's looking after the Thatha
The
part
Thatha
of
part
it.
of
Yeah.
it, okay.
We have a master's student in the UK who's researching from the libraries in India House and the British National Museum, because most of the records are there because the East India Company and the British rule, who's taking that angle of it. And Dr. Mangla will bring everything into it, and it will culminate into a coffee table book, which
Okay.
we absolutely would want it to be circulated to every library in the Middle East, every embassy in the Middle East, every government department. It trace our history. There'll be stories of entrepreneurship, which I think can hopefully, I believe, will inspire more entrepreneurs
Okay.
in the community. Coming back to the complex temple, accommodation for the priest, accommodation for the visiting priest,
Okay.
offices, a knowledge center where entrepreneurs can come, and we are hoping the knowledge center will be linked to major universities, so students or even entrepreneurs can use those facilities. 2 kitchens fully equipped, so hopefully this will be a part of the wedding destination thing which Bahrain is
Okay,
trying to
yes,
promote.
yes.
You know, weddings, one part of it has to be in a religious place like a temple, so that you know, Hindu weddings can at least part of the celebrations can be there, or part of the ceremonies can be there. We will have, of course, smaller halls there for prayers, for women to come and do their kirtans or satsangs or prayer meetings. We also will have a sound and light show in the open courtyard there, which will be sort of like a tourist attraction, again tracing the history of Bahrain and our community. It will be pretty environmental friendly, green, so 25% of the energy will be from solar panels, water will be recycled. So it's a very ambitious project, nearly $5 million US. All the funding has been raised by our community members.
Okay.
We are not asking any funding from anybody else.
All right.
Our
So
community,
it's a community sponsored.
it's a community sponsored thing. It's a Thatha Bhatia community project, and I'm privileged that it is I'm part of this. And the Honorable Prime Minister was very impressed. It was inaugurated under the auspices of His Majesty the King. The Crown Prince and Prime Minister, His Royal Highness Sheikh Salman, is personally interested in this project, has asked us several times where have we stood with this. Just an interesting side story. The documents which we had for the original land were signed, were so old that even the authorities here, the SLRB, which is the Survey Land Department, they were amazed. One of them is signed by Charles Belgrave.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have kept the original documents now in the museum, and we of course have copies of it. So this is the legacy which we have, and we hope that our community and our current committee members and boards will take this forward. And we feel this will be like an iconic.
By when do you see this project?
Another 2 years. It's 2023. It's an ambitious project.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Hindu temple is indeed an iconic spot in Bahrain, the heart of Manama.
Yeah.
And it has been we cannot forget the benevolence of the rulers of this country at this moment when we speak of the temple, isn't it? Right in the heart of this capital city, a temple. And that too, anybody who has been there, it's such an intricate streets, the Manama streets, the old streets, and that leads you to this beautiful spot. And it's indeed happy to hear that this changing into a very modern, iconic place again, thanks to the rulers again, and to the community indeed. And I don't think anywhere in the Gulf we can find such a spot. Is there any other temple that you can speak of?
There are temples, yes, thank you. First of all, no way can we forget this, that it's the ruling family who has actually welcomed us, actually promoted it, and there is no better testament of Bahrain's pluralism, no better proof of Bahrain's dualism, or Bahrain's liberal welcoming attitude. And we are proud to say that we are associated with it, and we are thankful. It wouldn't have been possible. Even the current project wouldn't have been possible without the support and the help of the ruling family. And that's why I said this is home for us, and they have made us feel like that. And the fact that they not only allow these sort of things, but they are part of our community. Any Diwali you see who's visiting, and you know all the royal family are there, family members are there, most of them. most of the businessmen are there. They come and visit us as well, and we are grateful to them that they let us sort of be part of this whole fabric of Bahrain, as I call it, the culture of Bahrain. But that is Bahrain historically: open, welcoming, tolerant, and practicing pluralism, and showing to the world, demonstrating to the world what the society is, what this country is all about, and what the ruling family is all about. Yes, there are other temples. There's one now coming up in Abu Dhabi. There's an old temple in Dubai. There's one in Oman, which is also pretty beautiful. But what this temple is, it is the first.
Yeah,
it is the first one.
That's why.
And we are proud of it, and we are proud that our community has taken this initiative. And we would like to thank each and every community member who's been part of this. Not now, but for years that they have been involved with this. So and we would like to retain that old charm of it, but then also bring it up to date and make it a contemporary modern structure which will serve the community better.
Yes, great. So all the best to the community and the country, and let's all be a proud part of this legacy that stands in the heart of Manama. And that's BC Tucker joining us this evening on BIZ Talk from BMC Global Live. We'll take a short break.
NEC Remit. Send money online to India. Credit in seconds with great rates. Download NEC Remit app now. NEC Remit has launched Send and Win. Download NEC Remit app now.
Back to BIZ Talk, brought to you by BMC Global Live. And this evening we have with us BC Tucker, Managing Director of National Trading House. Mr. Tucker, thank you for touching upon the business aspect of your placing in Bahrain. Well, this is news to me that you're also a teacher, a part-time teacher or a professor or an academic with a couple of universities in Bahrain. It was interesting to know that. I would like to ask you, how this blend of a businessman and a teacher, it's very rare, isn't it? Was this your passion? Did you
absolutely, Raji, it was my passion. I was inspired obviously by some great teachers in my life. Okay. I was absolutely privileged to be in a school. I was in, of course, an Indian school here in Bahrain, and as a child, then I went to a military school, which people don't know. I was in Nasik for 2 years in a military school, and we had some amazing career army officers who were also
teachers. Sorry, just to cut you, what took you to an army school?
So probably my parents thought I was not disciplined enough at 9 years, and they said that we need to put him into a boarding school, that too an army school. So it's a boarding school and an army school. So imagine tough life, coming straight from Bahrain into going into a place totally new.
Yes.
And the discipline there, 5 in the morning and the runs and whatever. What I'm glad is that those have stuck with me. I still like to wake up early, and I still like to run in the morning, which is my passion, another passion. I had great teachers in school. Our English teacher in school was phenomenal, and God bless her. I'm still in touch with her, Miss Brito, wherever she is. If she's listening to this, if I send her a copy, she inspired her for my love in literature. And then I came across another inspirational figure was Professor Bhaskar in my junior college in Bombay. And he was just amazing. He was vice principal of a college which I was in, Hinduja College. I spent 2 years there, and when we thought Professor Bhaskar, we thought there would be somebody balding 65-year-old fuddy-duddy guy who will, make life difficult for us. Professor Bhaskar was 28 years old back then, a master's in economics and master's in literature, and wore faded toned jeans in college. Had long Beatles hair, long hair and Beatles shoes.
Very contemporary.
Very for us, and we were absolutely in awe of him because he would sit with us and talk about literature and Hemingway. And he encouraged us to read, though it was a business college. He would teach economics as well, but he would also teach literature. And he encouraged us to read, and he would discuss books with us. And I say Hemingway because that's one of his books which he actually spoke about us. The Old Man and the Sea comes to my mind. And he actually said, what are the lessons you learned from that? I was just 17 years old back then, not even, And then he would listen to us on records back then, no CDs or disc or whatever, and we would listen to Pink Floyd, and we would listen to all the rock bands, and he would explain and talk about music, and his command on the English language was fantastic. He is now a journalist, an editor in various newspapers. He worked in various institutions, and he's a public speaker now. And I had the privilege of meeting him about 5 years back, and he invited me to the press in Bombay. We met him in Press Club in Bombay, and I spent a good 1 hour with him. He was also the head of the debating team, and he never let me on the debating team. He always kept me as a standby. I was never in the top 3 in the debating team because he said, Bob, you're not good enough, and probably wasn't. But he inspired me to teach. So when I joined business, obviously, and I call this in the Asian subculture, I call this the eldest son syndrome. If you're a business family, if you're the eldest son, you finish university, you join the business, you get married, and you procreate. I did all that. I ticked all the boxes, but I did not do my master's. I did my bachelor's and joined the business, like so many of our community members. And I had this thing about teaching, which I sort of thought was unfulfilled. But I couldn't teach as a bachelor's. Nobody would even entertain somebody with a bachelor's degree to teach. So I went and did my master's in Strathclyde University in Glasgow, but they had a program here back then with British Council. It took me 2.5 years. I had a wife, 2 kids, but I finished my master's in 2.5 years. And then the university invited me to sort of guide the students who were going through this MBA program. They call it local counseling, but like for marketing.
The Strathclyde University.
The Strathclyde University.
They are
now with BIBF.
BIBF, yeah.
I then sort of got opportunity in BIBF back then with another university called University of Bangor, and it's been 13 years now since I've been teaching, and I've been privileged to do that. And during that teaching, I taught undergrad, I taught masters. I taught professional courses like CIM, the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and I'm absolutely blessed that I learned a lot from the students, learned a lot about social media and technology from them. I did not have any idea what Snapchat was till the kids told me what Snapchat is and set up my account for me. So, but you talked about entrepreneurship and businessmen, and my question always is, what are we doing back for the community? And that is my underlying philosophy. That as an entrepreneurship, you've done something either as a family business or on your own, and you've grown the business. Why is entrepreneurship or business been only associated with signing checks and giving donations? I think working for the community is much more beyond that. It can go beyond that. It should go beyond that. Entrepreneurs are risk takers. They have taken enormous risks in their business. They also have wealth of knowledge, which I think can be shared back to the community, young entrepreneurs, young students. My teaching brings that blend. I can always give an example of a multinational from a company and say this is what they did in their marketing practice. I would rather give an example of an iconic Bahraini restaurant or a small business or examples from our community who had nothing on them, no resources, but then built businesses. And those examples actually resonate more than, say, an Apple or a Google would, as inspiring as those stories are. So I bring it back. So this is one way of my giving back to Bahrain, who has given us, the country which has given me so much. Teaching is, of course, it's not a free job. I do get paid for it, but I think this is something which I can share my experience with. My experiences, or any businessman's experiences, or any entrepreneur's experiences, are something which we can give back to the community. Students who are with me, who were my students 7, 8, 10 years ago, are now working in banks and mid-level management and ministries. And I'm proud now when I meet them, or they're in touch with me on social media, and they say a nice word and say, we remember this Mr. Bob from your class, and I think that's the biggest reward I get from this. And seeing them succeed.
You're very right, Bob, in this brief answer. You touched upon a number of points, because all of us do have a teacher out there who had inspired us into whatever field we are in. I still remember my school days where someone taught me Red Riding Hood, which took me to literature. And salutes to all my teachers, and especially Professor Bhaskar, if you're out there watching us. Indeed, nice to know about you. I can picture him, in his torn jeans and beard, because we all can place one teacher.
Yes.
Second is like the way it molds a person. And I could see a lot of passion in you when you were speaking about your teaching, and that is a student asset, I think. The pride that a teacher takes himself. And all the more, thank you for bringing in that giving back to the society. Not many teachers reflect on that aspect. Salute to all the teachers who take that burden on them of nurturing a generation. Thank you, Bob, for being a teacher. That was beautiful sharing. And it's nice to see a businessman with an equal passion into teaching. On that note, this is BC Thakur with us on Biz Talk from BMC Global Life. Welcome back to Biz Talk, brought to you by BMC Global Life. And this evening we have with us BC Thakur. Now I will take you to a different aspect of yours, which we would like to hear from the Rotarian Bob. I think I have interacted with you more on that aspect. You've been on I think you were the past president of the Manama Rotary Club. And Rotarians, one thing I've observed, is so very passionate about what they are into. Like the other day I had a chat with the great Rotarian Mazan Alumra. He told me with so much enthusiasm and energy that I have not missed a single meeting in my 37 years. So are all Rotarians like this, Bob?
I wish all were like District Governor Mazan. He's an amazing role model for all Rotarians. And I was privileged enough that I worked, that I'm part of Rotary Club of Manama, and I worked with District Governor. He's now the District Governor.
Yeah, he's now the District Governor. Yeah.
I know him personally well, I know his family well, I know Amar well. And he's an amazing personality. He, along with some of the few Rotarians, long-term Rotarians in Manama and Salmania, have shaped Rotary in Bahrain. Earlier on, I told you 2 words, legacy. I talked about the legacy of our community. I now talk about the legacy of Rotary Club of Manama, which was the first Rotary Club in Bahrain.
Yes.
And the rich legacy that one has. One of the things which I'm sure must have come up conversation with other Rotarians is that Rotary is not a charity organization.
Exactly.
Rotary is a service
organization. Clear explanation.
It's absolutely a clear explanation. I think we are very categorical.
It's a service organization.
It's a service organization. We serve the community. We aspire to serve. It's a service above self. And we all know in individual capacities what we can do. Rotary is full of successful businessmen or senior personality, not necessarily only business. It is not an elitist club. That's one thing.
That's yet another.
That's another sort of a misconception about it. It's not an elitist club. It's all welcoming. If it was elitist club, it wouldn't charge only 80 dinars a year. It would be something which would be exclusive. It is not a club, which is not a charity organization. It's something which gives back to the community. It's a service organization. We serve the community. That's what we try to do. Rotarians want to do things themselves. They don't want to sign a check off and say, you know what, okay, go ahead and do this project. You will see Rotarians involved in projects. As a past president, and again I was privileged, which I can name so many Rotarians, Mazen being one of them, and there's so many others who are, I'm not naming anyone else because I would miss out most of them.
But what brought you into Rotary?
My brother, actually, my younger brother, Dilip, was a Rotarian in Salmania. He got me in, and then I joined Manama, and then Manama had privilege to work with past President Hussein Tadayon, Robert Timmers, Raj Damani, who is also a role model for me, the way he has shaped Rotary. He's past
BIZ chairman.
Yes, the BIZ chairman, and twice the Rotary president. There's Imad Al-Moyed, also past district governor, Khalid Al-Moyed also, he was from Salmania. So, and so many others. Please, if I missed out anybody, please excuse me for not naming them. And this is a service organization which has actually worked in the community for so many years. There are other misconceptions of Rotary. It is some sort of an, as I said, elitist or some sort of an organization. It's not. We are here to serve the community. That's what we do. We have raised hundreds of thousands of dinars, millions if we put everything together in Bahrain, and given that money back to the community.
Yeah.
During my term, we won 5 awards, 4 awards actually in the district conference, because we did some good work. And Manama has always been known for doing some fantastic work. So is Salmania. And now we have a new club also, which is Rotary Club of Sreef. And then there are the Rotractors, who are the younger generation. And then there are the Interactors, which are in the school. So it's quite a bottoms-up organization in the sense that the members themselves are involved. And
indeed, and there are, I think, certain projects that the Rotary is into, and I think recently they added the environment sustainability also into it.
Yes.
That tells us how much you're abreast and keeping up with the situational demands.
Absolutely. Environment, women empowerment.
Yeah,
and I personally don't like...
Peace and resolution, I think Rotary was in the forefront in all these crises, whether it's natural disasters or others.
Yes.
Interesting indeed.
Yeah. I actually don't like women empowerment as a word.
Really?
No, because
who
are we to empower women? Women empower us, personally speaking. So I believe that they are superior to men in all respects. I think this empowerment word, even in business, I don't like this word. I empower my employee. No, I don't. The employee empowers me. First of all, he's not an employee. He works with me. So he or she empowers us as managers or bosses. It's not the other way around. So I totally am sort of, maybe it's a bit contrarian thinking, but I think we are, what are we? We have a God complex that we empower somebody? No, we are not. We only gain strength from women, starting with your mother and everybody else. So who are we to say anything to?
NEC Remit has launched Send and Win. Win up to 2,000 points and redeem from our partners. Download NEC Remit app now.
When we were talking about your teaching stint and your masters, you in passing referred about, with my wife and 2 children, you did your masters, you know. So on that note, I'm sure your wife must be managing a lot of things. You a businessman, you a Rotarian, you a teacher, and a lot more, right? And the community leader that you are.
Yes.
Tell me about that beautiful woman, first of all.
Well, thanks to her that I've been able to manage.
What's her name, by the way?
Her name is Sunita, and we are blessed with 2 kids. My daughter Sanchita lives in London. She's married, and she's got a job there as a director in a bank. And my son is Vivek. He works with Apple in San Francisco. And of course, my wife is the one she's a homemaker. Which is no easy task, and we lived in a joint family, so it was my dad, my mom, my brother, his wife, and the kids. So that itself is a task in itself, and plus being involved in business, and you know the stresses which revolve around that, and of course all the other activities which I've taken on myself. So thanks to her, and I'm grateful to her, and grateful to my parents, and grateful to the family who put up with all this. And we haven't spoken of one more thing which I am involved in, if you may allow me, is that I'm part of EO, which is the Entrepreneurs Organization.
Okay.
Which is an organization in Bahrain, a global organization, about 12,000 entrepreneurs in Bahrain.
But how active is EO in Bahrain?
Very active of late. It is an organization about 50 plus entrepreneurs. Once again, it's all about learning. It's about growing, and it's about trying new things, and it celebrates entrepreneurship, and it doesn't mind talking about failures because failure is part of entrepreneurship. I was part of EO. I was also part of the board, and in about 2015, I chaired the EO Accelerator program, which was recruiting businesses which had less than $1 million of turnover, and then helping them grow, and with EO Global's help, helping them grow to cross the $1 million threshold. And I'm glad that we recruited about 12 members when I was the EO chair, and I think 4 of them have already crossed that in the next 2 years or so.
Interesting.
Yeah, so EO is a beautiful organization, really good, and really something which every entrepreneur could sort of learn from. So once again, privileged to be part of this.
Great. A big hello to the beautiful family of Mr. BC Thakur with us on BIZ Talk this evening from BMC Global Life. Bob, you mentioned about your family. What about your passions, hobbies? Do you get time for your hobbies, if at all?
I wish I could do something else besides this. Of course, teaching is a passion, and that's my hobby.
And it's indeed
actually
a blessing to have your job your passion as a job.
Yes, that's absolutely, and that for me, teaching is also a bit of a stress reliever. Huh? Takes me away from the business and then there. I love reading. I would like to read more, but I think nowadays podcasts are the big thing now. The technology helps you to sort of at least hear some things. Fascinated by history, fascinated by how we are still, as human beings, not learning from our history and making the same mistakes again, repeating the mistakes. Hopefully, humanity will learn, and of course, even though I'm born in Bahrain, the Indianness is not there. So I'm passionate about cricket. And yeah, I love running as well. So whenever my age allows me, I try to run a bit. So these are some of the other things which I like.
Do you play cricket?
I used to, as a kid, now no longer. No, I don't. I'm more of an armchair cricket critic,
Okay.
which I think a billion people in India are, I suppose.
And I think you are a fitness freak, thanks to your Nasik education, perhaps.
I go through these waves, but I try to be as fit as possible. So my wife also, she is big into yoga. I sort of try to get some running done, ups and downs, but as much as possible, yes, I try to remain that, do that.
Right.
Yeah.
As we come to the close of this beautiful evening and this chat, you just mentioned about human not learning from history. And do you see the current situation one such? The pandemic, its impact, because I think you can speak on it from different aspects, from a businessman's point of view, from a historian's point of view, from a teacher and a literature lover, so many aspects. How do you look at this pandemic and post-COVID days, Bob?
So, Raji, let me just set the record straight. I'm just a businessman, and neither am I a full-time academic. So please excuse me if
you have all that in
I've
you,
done
you know?
a bit of it. So and there are more successful entrepreneurs than
Definitely.
there. So and history is only something which I'm passionate about. I read about as much as I can. What can we learn from this pandemic? I think the most important, clearly, what comes out is that whatever comes and goes, the family is something which you have to get back to. It will always be with you. So you go back to your family nowadays because you can't even meet friends. Huh? So you at least have your family there. As an entrepreneur, from the business point of view, how will it be? I think it will change. The landscape will change. Yes. Technology is here to stay. Digitization is here to stay.
Yeah,
my experience as a teaching now for the first time online is not very, for me personally, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I like that human face-to-face contact and interaction, which is missing in that. But I think this is the trend going forward.
That's a new norm, yeah.
It's a new norm. How will our lives be? We are doing hygiene and living simply. Eating out has been curtailed, and if you listen to our elders, they were always saying, don't eat out that much, eat at home. And I think now we've been forced to do that. So nature is, I think, sending us a message, though I enjoy eating out. But that's the other thing. I think the other way of looking at it as a trend will be, this whole thing about digitization is just going to get accelerated. I think COVID is a catalyst, which has done it. Means work from home and not commuting. The impacts are so huge. One of the things we did in our Stratlight Business School is known for is scenario planning. So you do different scenarios for different situations, and I think the scenario going forward for individuals, for families, for businesses will be diametrically different than what we are thinking. I think we have to really sort of see how it plays out. But personally speaking, I don't think it's going to get as normal as we thought it would be, like, hey, take a vaccine and go back.
Welcome back to BIZ Talk with BMC Global Life, and we have with us BC Thakur. As we conclude this conversation, I would want to touch upon this important part of your family, your student community. Tell me something funny that you remember from your student side, Bob.
Reggie, they have so
Because
many.
just to cut you, in a conversation with Mr. Joel in Trupadi, I'm sure you know him.
Yes.
Joel had a conversation, and I asked him a similar question in a similar platform, and he said like online classes were very interesting, that in between his online class he could hear one of the students telling 3BD Mumtaz please. You know, she was at the fuel station, you know, in the online class. I found it interesting. Have you come across something like that?
Well, not on the online thing, but on the so many years of students interacting with them, and there have been many stories. Unfortunately, most of them can't go public.
Okay.
My relationship with my ex-students has been more of a friend who's elder to them, and then sharing my experiences with them. But what I can say is, and I'm fascinated, 99% of my students have been Bahrainis.
Okay.
Because wherever it was. And it's amazing how vibrant and how eager they are to learn. The other aspect of it is about the teaching is that, and I would like to say this with all honesty, and I look directly into the camera and say it, that I learned as much from them as they learned from me, hopefully. My whole thing was, philosophy was not to teach, but to share my experiences. And then it's up to them. And why that is good is because they still call me and or message me sometimes. And one of the small sort of things I would tell them is that if you're not interested in studying, just marry R&S.
Okay.
And they would say, what is R&S, Mr. Bob? And I said, just marry somebody rich and stupid. and now I get messages saying that I'm getting engaged, and I hope he's R and he's not S. So, but on a serious note, there's some bright kids. And they're making an impact in society now.
Interesting.
2 of them are pilots. Though they were business students.
Okay.
One of them recently started a sort of a business where she's passionate about plants and everything and gardening, and I told her, why don't you teach the community, and she started that.
Okay.
So most of them are working in banks or have their business. One of them has started a sports app. So I'm really proud of what my role has been very minimal, because I just taught one subject for 1 semester or 2 semesters. But I'm delighted to be part of this community, and I'm glad that Bahrain has such bright young kids, and the future is bright. I'm optimistic about that.
What a beautiful note to close that conversation. Thank you, Bob, for joining us this evening. Thank you so much for sparing your time. It was indeed enlightening, enterprising. That was entrepreneur, businessman, community leader, and Rotarian, Bob Thakur, with us this evening on BIZ Talk from BMC Global Live.
Thank you, Raji, and thank you for having me here. It's a privilege, and thank you for letting me share my experiences.
Thank you.
I wish you all well. Thank you.
Until we meet next week, same time, with yet another businessman, this is Raji Unikrishnan signing off on BIZ Talk from BMC Global Live.